Hi, I'm Peter Knight. I want to talk today about the number of parts in a golf swing, or the number of stages in a golf swing. Now, it's especially relevant because if, like me, you're confined at the moment to doing your practice at home, then it's really easy to start to think too much about the golf swing and its positions and that type of thing. So you've only got the reference of what your swing actually looks like when you record it on a video. Now, it's useful to have thoughts about the swing in different parts, and generally the breakdown of those things, and regardless of whether there's 6 stages or 8 stages or 12, 10 or 12 stages, they're generally referring to points of reference during the golf swing. But it's really critical to remember that the golf swing is probably best thought of as having one movement. So not even backswing, downswing movement. Once you're set up, think of the overall motion as just being a continuous one from the start of the movement until the very finish. And always have that in mind, even if you're thinking about the different sections or parts of a golf swing. I mean, typically we'd look at address and look at these things sort of from front on and also from down the line. So address, the first part of the movement of the takeaway, maybe the club halfway back here, top of the swing, however far back that is, depending on the club you're using, and then just different places in the downswing, approaching impact, past impact, and through to the finish. Bear in mind that the downswing movement is almost reflexive. So what you do at setup is the thing that you have the most control over. So getting the setup right, which is why people like me will sort of harp on it a lot for you to get it right. It's your foundation to get everything else moving. Regardless of whether you're working on setup or you're working on moving through a particular point in the swing, as I said earlier, always remember that we're thinking of a continuous movement. So how you can start to put that together, and this applies for any lesson you ever have, any reference you ever do for yourself. It's how do we actually get the idea of what we want to do into what we want to become a continuous reflexive motion. So let's say the thing that I want to focus on for the moment is the first part of my takeaway. So I set myself up. My coach has told me that I want to be sort of here at this point in the backswing, and my checkpoints are that as I start back, I don't want to use my hands and arms too much. I'm really just thinking of rotating my rib cage without any extra hand movement or wrist movement at the start. So my first movement would be first step would be to do that quite slowly, so that I'm actually very aware with very little tension through my body of making that movement more correct. My next stage might be to move through that point. So as I start back, rather than just sort of stopping here, I might actually go back a little bit further and notice what effect that first movement, the improvement of that first movement has on the swing consequently. So from there, I get the movement a little bit faster and then through to the end of the swing. So I'm looking as quickly as I can to put one part back into the entire motion. And I might need to do that slowly. In fact, one of my online students from Holland calls it his Tai Chi swing. So when he's swinging the club, his practices will be quite slow, just to get the feel of the movement. And often there's distinctions that'll come in that you'll be aware of at slow speed that you won't necessarily be aware of when it's moving quickly. Because as soon as you're moving quickly, particularly as the swing goes to full speed, then initially and for a period of time, the swing wants to revert to its learned pattern. So it does take some time to get used to an improved movement, a changed movement. So when you're learning anything, again, at the start, if it's, let's say it's a position halfway back here, I know I want to be, let's say here, and I've got whatever reference points I've got, I might work there slowly, stop, and check whatever my reference points are to make sure it's correct. do that a few times, work through it slowly and continue. And so I'm starting to build the feeling into an overall motion as early as I possibly can. I might go back and keep checking those things, because if it is going to take time to make the change, I need to give it that time. But remember, better to think of the swing as one motion. So from address to the finish, all one motion.